Welcome, everybody, to episode 7 of Digging for Gold. I'm your host, Dan Goldberg. And once again, we have a very, very special guest, very dear friend of mine. Known him for many years, former classmate of mine, like we've had a couple times before. This is Carl Mason.
Hi, guys. How are you?
He is the owner and the entrepreneur behind Central Salvage, and which is a very interesting company because we've all seen, if you're from Philadelphia, you've seen Veterans Stadium imploded, right? And other buildings. As a matter of fact, there was just an email that I received or a video of a building being imploded in Littleton, Colorado, across the street from where my daughter lives, actually. And so she sent me that. I'll have to send that to you. But I want to know, Mace, Carl Mason, I know him as Mace, how did you get into this business?
That's a great question. Let me just say something before we start. I actually have a partner in this business, and that partner happens to be my wife, Bobby Mason, and she's an integral part and one of the main reasons for the success. How I got started in this business is kind of interesting. As Dan said, I graduated from Central in 1965. I went to Drexel University to study engineering, and I got a degree in Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering in 1970. It was actually Drexel Institute of Technology until 1969. They changed it to Drexel University, which really upset me. I like the Drexel Institute of Technology. It sounded like MIT. And when I graduated, my first job was at an engineering firm in Philadelphia. And they had me sitting at a drawing board designing concrete forms for some construction in Philadelphia. I lasted 2 weeks. I said, this is not for me. I got to get out of here. I then proceeded to leave. I really didn't know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go. And I jumped on a plane and flew out to California. There was another classmate, Ron Rosen, who was at Stanford Law School. And I had no money. My father gave me $50 and a watch. And I got off the plane, and within a day, I actually got a job, a really neat job as a soils engineer, testing the soil samples along the San Andreas Fault. I had a pickup truck. It was fantastic. I worked there 2 months. Unfortunately, I was the last hired and the first to get fired. I got laid off. I was going to stay there and go to graduate school for I have no idea what. I moved back to Philadelphia because I didn't have any money, and I got a job. The job was working for a company called Cleveland Wrecking Company, which at the time was the biggest demolition company, actually possibly in the world. And I was working in the front of one of the jobs they were doing at the Chester Crozier Hospital. And
So you came back to Philly?
I came back to Philly.
Got it.
And I got a job for $5 an hour working as a laborer, stripping copper from the former Chester Crozier Hospital. And I was there 2 days, and it really started to, I started to figure out that this was kind of interesting. The stuff that I'm handling it's like money. It's copper, aluminum, and it's kind of got in my blood. It really piqued my interest. About 2 weeks later, the owner of the company said, "Hey, you have a degree in engineering. Why don't you come and work in the office?" And I said, "Nah, I don't want to do that." He said, "Come on, you might like it." Within 2 weeks, I was flying all over the country with an expense account, doing intriguing things. I was visiting power plants, chemical facilities, manufacturing facilities, all that were getting ready to be demolished. And I was starting to learn the demolition business by learning how these processes worked. I really, really got into my blood, and I found it fascinating and interesting. I stayed there 2 years. I decided I couldn't work for somebody else, and went into business for myself as Central Wrecking and Salvage in 1973, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you took the wrecking.
Well, that was one of the monikers that was used in our industry, Central Wrecking and Salvage.
Right.
The problem is I went broke. I went broke a year later, lost all my money. And when we started up again in 1981, actually with another classmate, Ed Kleiman, it was Central Salvage Company. And then he moved on back to a scrap business, and I ended up partnering with my wife, and we own the company now. and it's been a long haul, and it's been a fascinating, fantastic experience for me.
It's interesting when you talked about you couldn't work for somebody else, right? And you had to work on your own. When I speak to people about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, I say entrepreneurs, when they work for somebody else, or when they're thinking of moving on and doing other things, it's like a disease, but it's a dis-ease. You're not at ease in the current situation, so you have to figure out what you can do on your own. So when you're working with somebody, you're in a state of dis-ease, and that's what we all have. And we all make money, we lose money, we do all these kinds of things. It's a fascinating mental state, and to stay in it, and to be innovative, and intrigued by things, and want to move forward. How do you keep that? How do you keep that up?
I think that's a great analysis of an entrepreneur. I think that our DNA is different. I think we're made up differently. We're risk takers. We like to gamble. We think we're smarter than everybody, or at least, let me rephrase that. I don't think I'm smart. I think I'm as smart. I think I always used to look at, the other thing is I used to look at, when I was working for Cleveland Wrecking, I look at these individual guys that own smaller businesses, and I looked to them like they were gods. I revered these guys. These guys owned their business. They called their own shots. They made their own decisions. They made money or lost money. It's really something that fascinated me, and I think it's been in my blood my entire life. My wife and I have taken chances that I can't even describe to you. We put everything we own on the line on some jobs when we bond a job, and the moment that you realize it could go one way or the other, it's an adrenaline rush, I would say, and I think few people have that. But if you have that, I would suggest you embrace it, because it's a unique asset, in my opinion.
I will agree with you, because you know my background.
Yes.
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I'm doing a whole bunch of things even now. But when we talk about adrenaline rushes,
Yeah.
I would like to know, and I think the audience would like to know, everybody out there, what's it like to implode a structure? I mean, what do you go through? What's the team like? Who goes where? Where do you get the explosives? I don't mean where do you get them, I mean, where do you put them? Things like that.
Great questions. I'll use a job we did, and actually got worldwide coverage. I was on every major wire service. In 1993, our business was kind of really slow. We weren't doing anything, and I'm at home in Wynwood, and my wife's making my favorite dinner, which is meatloaf, and she's a great cook. And it's snowing outside, and she says, "Come here, I want you to see something on the news." So I go over and look at the TV, and there's a building that's like, the windows are popping out of it. The building's falling, and there was a sinkhole in Allentown. It was moving. Oh. She said, "I'm going to get on the phone, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get us up there to bid on that." I said, "What are you talking about?" First of all, I want to finish dinner. I love your meatloaf. Second of all, it's snowing out. She gets on the phone. She calls up. She says, she gets the owner on the phone. This is what she's great at. She gets the owner on the phone. She says, "Listen, I can have my team of engineers. I'm the engineer. We'll have our team of engineers up there in a half an hour. We can give you an analysis. We can tell you how to take this building down the safest way." He said, "Fine, come up the next day." So we went up the next day. My wife and I drove up, and there were 20 demolition contractors up there. And I said to her, "Let's go. We're not going to get this job." She said, "Go where? We have no work." She says, "Let's stick this out and see what happens." Long story short, we ended up in the room with the owner talking to him, and halfway through his first conversation, I knew we were low bid, just the way he was talking. And it was a real thrill. So we got the contract, and while we're sitting there, we get contacted by the owners of the building. Can we get their all their belongings out of the building? It was a brand new building. It was the newest building in Allentown, mid-rise. And my wife said, "Can you do it?" I said, "Sure, we can do it." So we went in there. We had a whole nother contract. Anyway, within 3 days, people were wiring money into our account. So we came whole again. We took the building down. So we ended up having to contact what's known as a shooter. I do not have a license to implode buildings. Very few people do. There's probably 2 people in the country that I would trust. One is Dicon out of Oklahoma. The other one is CDI, Controlled Demolition, who actually was the person that actually invented imploding buildings. His name was Jacques Lavoisier. He was a French Canadian. I was just on the phone with his son. And what you have to do, the first thing that you have to do is the shooter comes in under really heavy armed, armed. What's the word? Whatever.
Vehicles?
Yeah, vehicles, and they bring the explosives in. They store them. The next stage is to pack the building with explosives. This particular building, he used linear charges. Now these charges can cut through steel and concrete at 20,000 feet per second.
Whoa.
Yeah, they're really incredible, and it's a common misconception. You don't blow the building up; you implode the building. In other words, you hit the main structural elements, mostly in the center of the building, and then you let gravity take over. So it was all set to go, and the mayor of Allentown decided that he was going to make a spectacle out of this and make some money, and he raffled off tickets for somebody to push the plunger. Now you can't push the plunger unless you're licensed, so it was actually a phony plunger. And thousands of people responded. So the next day, there must have been 50,000 people in Allentown watching this.
Wow.
But the night before, I was sitting in a car with the shooter. His name was Jim Reedike. And it was 11 o'clock at night. We're right next to this building. It's loaded with explosives. There's police everywhere. And he says, I don't know, I'm worried. I said, you tell me that now you're worried? I said, I got CNN, MSNBC, Fox. I got He says, can you get more insurance? I said, sure, it's Friday night at 11. I said, what, are you crazy? No. What's the problem? He says, well, the Northeast End, I said, why didn't you tell me that before? Long story short, the next morning, the blast went perfectly. We got incredible news coverage on it. And if you look, I have a video of it. If you look at it real closely, the Northeast section looks like it's going to go the wrong way for a split second. And then instantly, one of the connecting beams pulls it inside. It was a perfect blast.
Wow.
But that particular point in time, to answer your question, the feelings that you have just before and while it's happening are really, you really can't explain it. The adrenaline rush is probably at least that, but fear, excitement, just, everything that I got into the business for, Your fortunes will be made or lost. Your entire life can, if it goes wrong, who knows what can happen. So that was fun. Yeah.
So when that building is imploded, what are your next steps?
That's actually the easiest part. What you do is you go in with equipment, excavators. They're big Caterpillar excavators with long arms that have clams, shells. The guys with torches cut the steel up. And you basically take the remnants of the building and you haul away. The concrete goes to one place. The non-friables go to another place. The steel gets salvaged. We sell the steel. And then before you know it, you have a flat lot and the job is done.
So when the concrete is hauled off,
Yes.
does it go to like a site that you're filling a hole?
It can go there, or it'll go to a what's known as a transfer station, which is a place where they're licensed transfer stations where people dump everything and then they separate them. They're usually recycled. It's usually recycled for road base or fill material, so that's recycled. The other stuff that's inside, the drywall, the ceiling tiles, and all that gets taken to a certified, EPA certified landfill. We pay to have that hauled off.
Wow.
The concrete we pay, but very little because it's getting recycled. And the steel we get paid for.
I don't think anyone, I never knew that.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone watching or listening now knew that. Like, what happens to the stuff and how long does it take?
Well, an implosion takes 8 seconds. So that answers the first piece. But however, the prep work took 2 weeks. And by prep, we had to prep the columns. We had to cut the columns, partially cut the columns. We had to set the we don't set the charges. We had to make ready the areas for the implementation of the linear charges at the direction of the shooter. It took about 2 weeks. The cleanup took about another 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was 5 weeks and it was gone, and then
Gone and
then you
just
hope you
like
get paid. Then you hope you get paid.
Wait a minute. I get that. Okay, I get that. Don't you get a deposit? Don't you
No,
get?
no.
You don't
I
get
will,
it?
I will tell you this. I'll tell you one quick funny story
Right.
about this job. While the building was falling into a sinkhole because the developer cut corners, didn't put his foundations deep enough. It was a limestone area, which is real soft material.
Yeah.
Across the street, while we were prepping the building, a whole city block was starting to fall into a sinkhole. So this goes to opportunities. So there was another opportunity, and the city came to us and said, "Can you do these? Can you take care of this as well?" So at that time, we had our funds were very low. So my wife said, "Yes, we can, but you have to pay us. I think it was $100,000 a week for 5 weeks or 6 weeks, and I have to get the check every Friday." So they agreed to that. So the first Friday came, and I was at the site. My wife was back home in Wynwood, and she said, "Go get the check." I said, "I just talked to them. We're not going to get it." She said, "Why?" I said, "All the signers are out of town." She says, "Okay." She says, "Wait there, and 10 minutes later, I'm going to call you, and you're going to go get that check." Something. Right. Next thing you know, they call me, "Your check's ready." She says, go pick the check up." Here's what she did. This is why she's incredible. She called up the mayor and said, "I just want you to know, if I don't get that check within the next hour, I'm going to move all my equipment in the center of Allentown. I'm going to block all the traffic up, and it's going to cost you another $100,000 for me to move it." We got the check. It's a tough business.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really one of the many incredible things she did to keep our business solvent.
She's the perfect partner.
She,
the 2 of you.
I got to
are
tell you,
the-
technically, I, without bragging, I'm probably really, really good at what I do. You know, I can analyze a building. I can tell you how much stuff's in it. I can tell you how to take it down. You know, how it was put together. I can tell you how much it's going to cost. I can tell you what we should and shouldn't do. But business-wise, she's like a genius. You know, she just has done so many things. She does all our union negotiations. I mean, I stay out of it. And me, they're all good guys. Let's get to go out and have a beer.
Right.
No, she's
kidding.
something. Yeah, she really is.
That's what you have to have. You have to have somebody that.
Well,
does
that's
that.
been a big part of our success. We work together very, very well, and yeah,
And so, how many buildings have you imploded?
not that many. That's a common misconception. 99% of all demolition work is done conventionally. If you're in the business, you're lucky if you've ever done one building, believe it or not.
No kidding.
I have had 2 implosions. One of them was in Allentown, and the other was at the Chester Pico facility, which was a huge, huge facility in Chester that supplied all Delaware Valley most of Delaware Valley with electricity. And we had to implode the coal bunkers at the top of the structure because
Oh man, yeah. I
they
know
was
what they-
like 10 feet thick. But that was it, really. I mean, we bid on a bunch of work. We bid on some other work at Atlantic City and elsewhere, but very little implosions. I mean, one's a lot. Most of what we do is boring, using specialty cutting tools and equipment. And
That's my next question.
go ahead, go for
Okay.
it.
And by the way, if you're watching us or listening from out of town or someplace else on the globe, the Delaware Valley is the Philadelphia
Right.
metropolitan area. So, of all the buildings that you've demolished, okay, that's different, not imploded, but demolished. You've demolished a lot of buildings. I would
Oh
say.
my God, yeah.
Okay. How does that work? What do you do first? Do you get all the plans? You get the old blueprints?
I'll give you an example. The Chester Pico job, which was over 20 years ago, and it's very similar to what we do today. There's a scope of work that's issued. What are we doing? You know, are we taking all of it down? Are we taking part of it down? What elements are staying? What do we have to work around? What's the time frame? What methods are we going to use? Are you union or non-union? The contracts are pretty voluminous. We have to adhere to OSHA standards. So there's all that, and then there's a bidding process. So in this Chester Pico facility, they called in 20 bidders from all over the country, and the reason they did was nobody could figure out how to do the job. It was a humongous building, and inside the building there was the boiler house, and then there was turbine hall. Okay, and I don't want to bore you with how power plants work, but the boilers obviously heat up water that go through pipes to the turbine room, and that spins the turbines, and that creates electricity. This particular building, it must have been a 400 feet by 400 feet boiler area room or house, housed 16 boilers that were sitting side by side, inches apart, that were 5 stories tall. They were huge. So nobody could figure out how to get into the building and take these huge boilers apart, because normally there's space where you can attack them from the left or from the right or from the top down. There was no room to do anything. So what I did was I noticed that if I cut a hole through this 8-foot thick foundation wall and made a big enough concrete foundation wall to drive one of these excavators in that have a shear on it that can actually dismantle. These boilers are all tube-fired boilers, coal-fired boilers with tubes. If I could get inside of one, if I could get one boiler down and out, I had it done. I had it made. I can go through the rest of just run around. And that's what we did.
How thick are the boilers?
They're comprised of brick. Then they have what's known as the heads, which are huge concrete circular pieces of steel. And then there's tubes, hundreds of tubes that the water runs through where it's heated. Then there's all kinds of fans and motors at the top. There's sludge control machines at the bottom. I mean, it's not like a heater in your house. I mean, these things are really big.
The size of your house, right?
Twice the size, actually.
Wow.
So it took us 2.5 years. The interesting about that job, to show you where
2.5 years to do that?
Yeah, it was a huge job.
Wow.
What's interesting about that job is we took out 15,000 tons of steel. That's how big the place was.
Wow.
And at the time that I looked at the job, scrap steel was low, was $30 a ton. At the end of the job, it went up to $100 a ton. So I averaged about $50 a ton, over what we should have done, $750,000. So
wow.
Now it went down. It could have gone down to $15. I would have lost all that money. So that's the gamble.
But you also had a contract to demolish the building.
Yeah. Oh no. We were getting paid to do it.
Right.
But what you do is you figure the scrap in.
Right.
If you don't, you're not going to get the job.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of scrap there, a lot of salvage. We salvage everything. There's copper. There's nickel alloys. We did a job where a piece of pipe was worth $6 a pound. Thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of it. I mean,
whoa.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
And you get all that. You have to go through it all.
We own it all. We did a job at PSFS, and a lot of what we do is because of my engineering background, I marketed my business as a selective demolition specialist, which means if you want me to knock down a barn, don't call me, or you want to do a house, don't call me. If you have a job inside of an active hospital, or that requires structural elements to be removed while the building remains intact, call me. That's what we do. Historic buildings, pharmaceutical facilities.
Did you ever work on anything that had a nuclear component?
I did once. I can't remember what it was. I think it was in Chester. The restrictions were so oppressive that we decided it just wasn't worth it.
Was that a waste management? Not the waste management company, but a company that dealt with managing waste.
I'm not sure.
Along the river.
Yeah, it was there were a bunch of them. There was one I can't even remember the name of the one, but we tried it once, and we said that's not working. It's too much paperwork.
Yeah, because I did have a client years ago that had a nuclear.
Really?
Yeah, had a nuclear component, and they were trash to steam.
Okay.
And it was down there on the Delaware.
I would love to do that. See, that's one of the things we haven't done. I would love to take apart a nuclear facility, but just because it's. Really
Let me see if I can make a call. Wait, that just happened last week.
I'm sorry. Without bombs.
Without bombs. Right.
Without B2s.
Right. So it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it is. I'll give you another example. So we do it about the risk reward So we're doing a job at the PSFS building, 40-story building.
Right.
And we bid on the job. There was asbestos removal involved. I actually had an asbestos removal company. I sold it about 20 years ago. And an out-of-town contractor came in, and they threw him off the job. So they called me and they go back in, and I ended up doing the job. There were huge vaults in this facility. And what's interesting, there's no as-built, which means there's no drawings to show you how the vaults are put together for obvious reasons.
Right.
People that want to break in, they can see the as-built. So,
Correct.
so these particular vaults, which was very common, had layers of steel on the outside, asbestos right behind the steel. They had copper, thick copper, 1.5 inch copper, sheets of copper between that, and then it went, asbestos, steel, and there was like 5 different layers. So we started taking them apart, dismantling them, and I ended up generating about 20,000 pounds of copper. And I said copper at the time was worth, I think $3 or $4 a pound. I said, I'm going to sit on this copper. I'm going to play the market. I'm going to play the market.
Yeah.
It ended up going down to like $1.50, so I lost on it. But, there's always that element of what I do that is just really, it's like.
Well, you find things out as you do it.
Right.
It's like you don't know what's in there.
That's a
most
great
of the
point.
time.
That's why I believe there's much more engineering involved in what I do than what a construction company does. A construction company puts a building up and follows certain plans, and those plans are very specific, and they bid on what the plans are, and the bids are very close. In demolition, you can start taking a structure down, you don't know what you're going to find.
Right.
Because there's no records. And it's also part of the risk and the excitement, I guess, of, what are we going to find?
What's the most fascinating thing you've ever found?
That's a great question. I'll tell you what was interesting. We did a job at the corner, right across from City Hall. The old Gerard Trust building was 30 stories, and there were 5 huge vaults downstairs, and the law says that people that have safe deposit boxes must recover them. They send out certified letters within 6 months. Otherwise, they belong to whomever's taking doing the demolition.
Right.
So we're doing this 6 vaults. We get to one of the vaults, and sure enough, there's a box there. Somebody left it. So all of a sudden, somehow this story gets out in the news, and Michael Smerconish, of all people, picks it up. And I'm listening to this on the news the next day in my office. Did you hear about the demolition contractor that found $1 million in cash? He's not going to pay tax. This crazy story. So I called up and I said, let me tell you the story, what really happened. I said, we got the box. My night foreman got the box, opened the box. They returned everything that was inside to the owner. It happened to be a 90-year-old woman who was a Holocaust survivor.
Wow.
And she had personal effects inside. So that was really, kind of an interesting thing. But we've found some really. I tell you what I like doing. We went and did book binders, the old book binders in Philly.
Yeah.
So I like going into old buildings and going up into areas where people keep personal things and notes, and you see all these remnants of their lives. There's pictures and that always intrigued me. It was kind of
all the stuff that my better half.
70, 80 years ago. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All the stuff my better half reminds me, you better go through this stuff, or your son is going to have to get rid of it, or your daughter, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it is there, and bookbinders, when it was after the restaurant was sold.
We didn't demolish. We gutted the building. Actually, I think they ended up making another restaurant out of it. And they built condos next to it.
Oh, wait a minute. The one on 15th Street?
No,
The one down
3rd
2nd
Street or 4th Street. Yeah.
Oh, Walnut.
I never pay attention to the construction part of it. I don't really know. I just, it's funny. People say,
just
what
wanna
did they
get
put there? I said, I don't care. I don't know. I don't know.
Right,
What cares?
Right. It's
cares?
very interesting. I don't know if you know this, but my family were engineers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
My grandfather built the Swan Fountain on the Logan Square.
Wow.
Yeah, he didn't do the sculptures or anything, but he did all that. He did a Keystone Engineering Company.
I heard of that.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
Yeah, he owned a block at 5th and Spring Garden. Yeah, and he would tell me things. He wanted me to become my brother and
Right.
the owners of the company, but we were too young. I mean,
Yeah.
he lived to be 100. And Did a lot of stuff. Great stuff.
I'll tell you something else about the business itself, and this goes to, I guess, being an entrepreneur and running a business. There are certain key points in time in your business life where things can go one way or the other, and sometimes it's fate that dictates how things work out. An example of this was I was knocking around the suburbs doing non-union work, making a living, doing okay. And one day something hit me and said, I'm going to go try to bid a union job, just see what it's like. And I went over to the Moorestown Mall, this must be almost 40 years ago, and I bid a job to a big union contractor. The guy calls me up and says, you're low bid. And I start to sweat because I'm not even, I don't know what it means to work in the union. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm thinking. I had an office in Narberth at the time, and I had a two-line, it was like 300 square feet on the second floor above a bakery. And I had a two-line phone. And I get on the one line, and I'm calling to tell the guy I'm not going to take the job. I'm really like, what am I doing? I mean, it sounds like exciting, but while he's got me on hold, or they have me on hold, my wife calls on the other end of the line, and I tell her, she says, what's going on? I said, I'm backing out of this job. She started screaming at me, what, are you kidding me? This is a great opportunity. Blah, 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 blah. Guy picks up the phone. I said, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow morning. We'll be there. But so we went on from that point.
Yeah.
That at one time, because of this one encounter, we became we were ranked 17th in the country, 17th largest demolition contractor.
Wow.
Yeah, which was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And we're all union. We're union. We're everywhere, which I happen to be a big believer in now, because it offers great opportunities for these guys that would never have them.
And do you also get apprentices? Do people work?
Yeah, but we have, what's interesting is we have guys that have been with us 35 years, and their sons work for us. And the union, love them or hate them, offers, these people incredible opportunities. Some of these guys, when they retire, they retire with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in annuities, pension money. They get health plans that you and I can't buy. I mean, I can't anyway, maybe you can, but I can't buy with any amount of money. Yeah. And it's security, and it really, makes for a better life. And the guys that work for us are great guys. They interviewed me once in the paper about how much money they make. I said, these guys don't make enough. I said, they eat nails for lunch. These are the toughest crew of guys you'll ever want to meet.
It's the truth. I mean, I feel the same way.
It's really macho.
It's like, if you're doing the work, who wants to do that work, right?
You try running a jackhammer in the heat, 8 hours a day, for 25 years. I mean, it just really wears you down.
It's brutal.
I couldn't do it. No.
Like today. Like somebody's out there today, it's 101 degrees.
They have to make 8 hours. They got to get paid.
Yeah. And they're out there, and they're sweating
and hopefully not passing out.
And they're not, right. Hopefully they're hydrated, right? But it's a tough business.
It's very, very tough business. Very tough bunch of characters. Sometimes the unions, even though you're a union contractor, can be very difficult. My wife does all the union negotiating. She was great. It's very unusual, tough. And, it's just something that I really, really enjoy doing, which really makes it easier. It's fun. When you're doing what's fun, we talked about this before. If you like what you're doing, you've got everything.
It's
really
the greatest.
It's not work. It's not work.
What do you see the future for your business, or that type of business, and getting employees?
Well, getting employees is not that difficult. I mean, you can hire an untrained laborer they'll start off making like $37 an hour, plus another $30 in benefits. I mean, it's difficult to have guys that are really skilled. My guys are more than laborers. These guys are skilled technicians. I mean, they go up on scaffolds, lifts, they walk beams. I mean, these guys really know what they're doing. The future of the business, it's a growth industry, I would say. It was 50 years ago. I think it still is today. It's a little different because there's so many more rules and regulations in place. especially regarding hazardous materials. When I first got in it, we worked around asbestos, PCBs. I mean, we would cut into tanks and different colored flames would come out, and God knows what was inside of them. I'll tell you one thing. I know I sound a little gruff when I talk. I haven't had as much as a cold in 50 years, so maybe this stuff is good for you. I don't know.
Maybe it's like a Woody Allen movie.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, this Woody Allen movie.
Yeah.
The health food stuff was bad, and all the junk food was good.
What was that called? Sleepers.
Sleepers. Yeah,
great
Sleepers.
movie.
Yeah. So it's a growth business.
I believe it is growth industry. Yeah.
The people out there who are thinking about their lives moving forward, all right, maybe they don't think about going into that business. Maybe it's an opportunity that they haven't thought about. Maybe some people watching or listening today go, hey, maybe I should get into that business. It's, maybe I could make, like you said, $35 an hour plus $30 $30 in benefits. It's a good life.
It is a good life. And it's really interesting. I also, one of the things I love about it, aside from the bidding and the risks that you take, and when the job, I enjoy the people. The people are really down to earth, authentic. Everybody's authentic. I mean, you go out on a job site. I don't do it so much anymore. I don't get around that well, but I mean, it's really kind of a neat, unique, experience. It is.
Real people,
real people, all
men
macho.
and
You
women.
walk in with your hard hat and your glasses and your vest, and it's like real macho stuff, man. I feel like Rambo when I walk.
Yeah, I get it. I do get it. I understand it, but it's dangerous.
No, it's extremely dangerous. Very, very dangerous. There are fatalities. There's serious injuries.
Yeah.
But my guys are good, and I market my company as a company that does everything the right way, and we're very safe. Very safe.
That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
The people stay safe because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You train them well. You treat them well. The union trains them well.
They do.
They treat them well.
They do.
Because they have to pass certain, requirements.
Right.
And then they're on the job. How long does it take for an apprentice to really?
I actually don't know that. We get apprentices from time to time. I think it's something like 6 months, I would guess. But there are apprentice schools for every single trade. We're signatory to the laborers in the Philadelphia 5-county area and also all over Jersey. We work in Jersey too. And the operating engineers, which are the men that operate the big heavy equipment.
That's what I did in the Army.
We adhere to all the the union requirements. I never do non-union work. I don't do any non-union. A lot of these guys sneak guys. We don't do that.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you need a heavy equipment operator, that was my MOS in the Army.
I'm going to tell you something.
In the Army, I was.
Really? I tell you what.
Really?
You have a day when you're all stressed out and you have all these resentments in your head. You jump on a big excavator for about 15 minutes and take a building down. You're going to feel like you'll fall asleep in the cab. I guarantee it. Forget pills anymore. You will. I'd like to say I'm one of the most mellow people around, but I don't think I am. I'm a little bit of an A-type.
This has been so cool, Mace.
Yeah, well, Danny.
Learned so much stuff.
I know.
It's all good. It's all good.
I could sit here and tell hours and hours, regale you with stories. We don't have the time, but it's just really interesting stuff.
Well, we're going to have you back.
I would love to.
More stories.
Yeah.
More stories.
I'll think
Mace,
about some of the other neat jobs we've done.
Thanks so much.
Hey, Danny, I love you, brother.
I love you too.
This has been a real treat for me. I hope you guys.
My treat.
Yeah.
My treat.
I'll end by saying one thing. I'll say that Danny asked me, do you have any regrets? I said none. What you don't want to do, if I can give some advice to any potential entrepreneurs or business people, you don't want to get to be 60 years old and say, I wished I had. Do it now. Take a shot. This would be my advice. That's all I got. Thanks.
Folks, listen to Mace. It's the truth. It's the truth. Follow us, subscribe. You can also check us out on Bearded Brilliance on TikTok and Bearded Brilliance for You on Instagram. Mace, thanks so much, man.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks for asking me, man. You're the best. I love you, man.
I love you too, man.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
See you all.
Peace.